The 2025 NFL Draft concluded about a week ago, and for my fellow Dynasty fantasy football players, you guys know that means there's a whole new crop of rookies coming in that could help you win your league. In this video, I'm going to share how I think the first round of Dynasty rookie drafts are going to pan out. No doubt, this is going to be the first of many this offseason, and a lot of things are going to change as we get closer to the end of the summer and start of the season. But I definitely want to give you guys my thoughts right after the draft, before all the training camp hype and all the fantasy football community chatter pollutes my thoughts and opinions on these guys. I'm approaching this mock as a PPR dynasty league that is non-superflex. But before my superflex guys click off this video, this is a historically weak quarterback class. So even in superflex leagues, I really only see 2 quarterbacks being taken in the first round tops. So you guys might as well stick around and see how the rest of my board falls. And I've set this first round to be 14 picks. So we're going to go through these 14 players. And with all that out the way, let's jump right in here. So I think as a fantasy football community, we've all known who's going to go number 1 overall in these drafts since December, if not earlier. And that's Ashton Jensen. This guy, if you don't watch college football, don't have college football knowledge, watch his films or his highlights. This is a guy who, if he didn't score 3 touchdowns a given night, it was a disappointment. He is a generational talent at the running back position. He was taken number 6 overall to the Raiders, and he is the number 1 running back for his team out the gates. This Raiders running back room is super weak. You got Zamir White, who was a big letdown last year. I'm not sure if Amir Abdullah is still there, but he's not an RB1. Madison's gone. He was the RB1 for them for a while there. And then you got Raheem Mostert, who they brought in from Miami. And if you were a Raheem Mostert believer, like I was coming in the last fantasy football season, you know that guy was irrelevant for fantasy. So Genti is in a position to potentially be an RB1 in his rookie year. But if not his rookie year, he's most likely, if all things pan out, a top 5 to top 8 running back for years to come. And if you play Dynasty and you've been playing for a few years, you know that it's hard to find quality running backs who can produce starting RB1 numbers for years. And you need that to be a championship team. So again, I don't care if you don't need a running back, but all likelihood, if you're picking at 1.101, you most likely do need a running back. But if you don't need a running back, you still take Genti. For all the things I just said, like this is a no-brainer to me. He's going to be the first pick in all, if not all, rookie drafts here this upcoming season. And then we move on to number 2. So the consensus number 2 for the last few weeks to months has been Omar Hampton. And I think a lot of that was under the assumption that he'd be a Denver Bronco come draft night. And that didn't happen. He's a Charger. We'll get into him a little later and how I view that landing spot for him. But word came out of Jacksonville last week that Travis Hunter is going to start his career mainly lined up at receiver. So we didn't know if he'd be playing corner, if he'd be playing receiver, but the fact that he's mostly going to be playing receiver is huge for fantasy football. This is a guy who won the Heisman. We've seen his tape. We know what he can do. He's a unicorn. He is a stud, and I firmly believe if we get confirmation he's mostly playing receiver this year and for years to come, he is going to be the number 2 pick. I guess you could make the argument that BTJ is there, another wide receiver 1 who could take snaps away from him, and he is going to take targets away from Travis. But you guys need to remember, Liam Cohen is now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And in Tampa Bay as the offensive coordinator, he was able to sustain an offense that he was able to run an offense that sustained 2 wide receiver 1s for fantasy in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And you got Travis Hunter and BTJ at this stage of their careers being in their younger selves who have higher upsides than both Godwin and Mike Evans. And I have no doubt in my mind Liam Cohen will find a way to get both these guys involved and be fantasy wide receiver 1s. And you need to remember, the Jags gave up a lot to trade up and get Travis Hunter, so he is going to be a cornerstone piece for this offense, and he will be a cornerstone piece for dynasty teams. So that's who I got at 2. And then once we pass 1 and 2, so both Travis Hunter and Genti fall into that category of I don't care what position you need. These guys should be taking 1 and 2 because just they're going to be fantasy studs most likely. But once you get to 3, you can start like nitpicking on what you need positionally, like either running back or receiver here. Obviously, if you need running back, you go Omar Hampton. But I think just going best player available, we're going to see T-Mac McMillan going at 3 a lot. I think he just landed in a really favorable spot in Carolina. He has the potential to be the alpha wide receiver 1 for this team because they got Leggett in the first round last year, who I think is going to be a really good wide receiver 2 for Carolina. And Adam Thielen's off the books next year. But again, the Panthers really, really needed defense coming into this year. And they opted to go receiver at 8 over defense. And I think that speaks volumes of what they think about McMillan. Bryce Young wanted him. This coaching staff wanted him. Bryce Young and him already have a connection from working out together this whole offseason. So if Bryce Young continues to develop and McMillan is the wide receiver 1 in this class and pans out to be what he was taken to be, this is going to be a really, really good fantasy asset for the next decade, barring any major injuries. So I love him at 3 here. I think if he ended up somewhere like Dallas, we'd be having a different conversation, or somewhere like Jacksonville even, where like he's not going to be the number 1 guy. But in Carolina, in his rookie year, he has a chance to be that alpha number 1 guy. So then we move on to number 4, and this is where I have Omar Hampton. So yeah, we spoke about him a little bit earlier. He was the consensus 2 for the last month or 2. I think he will fall to 3 or 4. So this isn't Denver. This is the Chargers, which is still a really good landing spot. They're a run-heavy team. The only knock here is that Najee Harris is going to be the starting back out the gates because they signed him on that 1-year deal. But I don't think this should drop his dynasty stock at all, because I'm going to throw out some names. These are guys in recent years who've been taken high in the NFL draft and high in redraft and dynasty. At the running back position, you got Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry. These are all guys who didn't really live up to that RB1 status in their rookie years. They kind of started picking it up at the end of their first years, but then their second years, they exploded. And the good thing for Omar Hampton here is that he doesn't need to be that workhorse back out the gate. He's got Najee Harris ahead of him, and this is going to let him ease into the NFL. And the Chargers have a really good offensive line. They're a run-heavy team. So I think by the end of the year, we will see Omar Hampton start picking up, kind of like the guys I just mentioned. And next year, if the Chargers don't want to give Najee Harris a $6 to $10 million deal, they don't need to. It's a 1-year deal, and Omar Hampton can be the running back 1. And again, Dynasty, this isn't redraft. You're playing the long game, and I think you take him here at 4, you will be happy by the end of the year and for years to come. So then we move on to number 5. And again, like I kind of touched on, it's hard getting running backs in Dynasty, quality running backs, and I think we will see some more running backs being taken in this range. And we got to start with the Ohio State guys. So we got Travion Henderson, who ended up in New England, and Quinshon Judkins, who ended up on Cleveland. I think these were both really good landing spots for him. They both have the potential to be the RB1s on these teams. They're both pretty bad teams, but they are trending up. And I do think the Patriots are trending up faster than the Browns as of right now, and that's because they've been addressing that offense around Drake May. So I lean Travion here over Judkins. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. If you have a preference over one or the other, just take whoever you like. But Travion kind of does have more of that juice as a receiving back, in my opinion. He can do both. Judkins also had some receptions at Ohio State last year, but Henderson's just had more throughout his college career, and I think that will continue in the NFL. So I do have him here at 5. It's going to be really interesting to see maybe in 2 or 3 years, looking back at these rookie drafts, did Henderson pan out? Did Judkins pan out? Was one of them better? Both these guys balled out on the same team at Ohio State last year, and they balled out through their college careers. I have no doubt in my mind they both can be really good running backs in the NFL. So again, I just say you go with your personal preference here at 5, but I do think one of them goes here at 5. And then we move on to number 6, and here I have a receiver being taken. So this, in my opinion, Green Bay was just such a good landing spot for Matthew Golden, who I have here at 6. So, oh man, the Packers have been playing this game of bringing in guys in the second round and the third round who, for fantasy purposes, just linger around that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 area. And then one of them will have a crazy good week in the first 6 weeks of the season. And everyone's like on waiver wire pickup priority 1. Like, you need them. Like, we've seen this with Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs. I think Jaden Reed is the best one out of those guys. But Green Bay hasn't addressed the receiver position in the first round in a really long time. They did that this year. And I think they did that with the hopes that Matthew Golden would be the wide receiver 1 for this team and for Jordan Love. And for fantasy, that's really exciting. I do expect Green Bay to trade one of these other guys in this wide receiver room by the end of the year. But when you have a really talented quarterback in Jordan Love and a pretty high-powered offense, and they get in a guy who really shined at Texas and could be the receiver 1, that's a recipe for success in fantasy. And for that reason, I definitely think he should be this, like, after Travis and McMillan, the 3rd receiver taken in Dynasty rookie drafts. And if he makes it anywhere past pick 8, man, that'll be a steal for anyone in the back half first rounds. But I do think this is a really good spot for Matthew Golden here in the top 6. And then again, the other Ohio State running back, whichever one's here at 7, I think both of them are gone by 8 in non-super flex leagues, obviously. But again, they could flip-flop here, but not going to, like, again, like Henderson, he's got all the qualities to be good fantasy running back and real-life NFL running back, but these guys are going to be gone before 8 for sure. And the good thing for Judkins is, real quick, is that Cleveland's running back room is not good. Like, Nick Chubb's injury concerns, old, he's gone. And Judkins has the potential to just be the RB1 out the gate, or at least by like week 4. So definitely, again, Ohio State guys will be gone by 8. All right, and then next we move on to the tight end position. So I have a tight end being taken here who I think is the best tight end in this class, and that's Tyler Warren. So obviously the Bears didn't think this when they took Loveland over Warren, and that surprised me, and I think it did surprise a good amount of fans. And if you haven't watched my video of, I gave out grades to every NFL team on how I think they did at the draft. I went in depth on this whole Coulson Loveland to the Bears situation over Tyler Warren. But the gist is that ultimately I think the Bears coaching staff and scouting department, doing all my mock drafts, I did have the Bears mostly going tight end if one of the 3 big offensive tackles weren't there. But I had them going Loveland. But I think the coaching staff and scouting department really I had them going Warren, I'm sorry, but I had the coaching staff and scouting department had Loveland as their guy. And I'm not a scout, I'm not a coach, I'm not trying to do their job, but they went with their guy. But I think if you're going tight end, you should go with my guy, and that's Tyler Warren. He fell to the Colts, which was a dream scenario for a team that desperately needed a tight end. This guy was a force in college and has all the receiving capabilities to be a really solid tight end 1 in fantasy. Like the running back position, this is a position that's hard to find good tight ends that will be consistent for you and not just streamers every single year, at least for a while here. And with a lot of guys like Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Dallas Goedert, like a lot of these like who were higher end tight ends coming to the end of their careers, even George Kittle, if you need a tight end, he's not going to last past 10 in my opinion. And this is a really good spot to take him. There are some quarterback concerns in Indy this year, so maybe he won't have like crazy tight end fantasy production year 1 if AR kind of like doesn't have a good year and Daniel Jones can't come in and do anything about it. But we've been spoiled the last 2 years with Brock Bowers and Sam Laporta. Typically, rookie tight ends don't do much in real life or fantasy in year 1. But again, we're playing the long game here with Dynasty, and I think this is a phenomenal pick here in the middle of the first rounds. So next we go to our first quarterback taken here. So again, in Superflex, I said I could see 2 quarterbacks taken in the first round, but in standard Dynasty, just like PPR format or non-PPR formats, or just non-Superflex, I only see 1 quarterback being taken in the first round, and that's Cam Ward, and he's worthy of being taken in the first round. Don't forget, I know the draft coverage and media coverage all in Shador because of like the narrative and Dion and the fact that he fell. Cam Ward has barely been talked about. This guy was the number one pick in this draft, and he's got the traits to be a really dynamic NFL quarterback. The question is just, can Tennessee get it out of him? And we'll see about that. We're not going to do a Cam Ward analysis here, but for fantasy purposes, if you need a quarterback, I mean, he's definitely worthy of being taken in the first round. I wouldn't want to take him over the guys I have ahead of him, but like if you're in this 9 through 14 range at the end of first rounds, I would definitely take him if you need a young quarterback. And this is a really good spot for him. And again, this is a bad year to need a quarterback in fantasy, unfortunately, through rookie drafts. But if you're going to take one, it's got to be Cam Ward. So then next we move on to the number 10 pick. And I have who was actually my second receiver coming into the whole draft, coming into the draft and everything. And that's Emeka Egbuka. And he was ultimately the second receiver taken by the Buccaneers. So, I mean, I don't have him over Matthew Golden in fantasy, and that's mainly because he is in a crowded wide receiver room over there in Tampa Bay. You got Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin, who just got an extension, and you have McMillan, who was pretty good last year. But the thing is, again, we're playing the long game in Dynasty, and Mike Evans is nearing the end of his career. Chris Godwin does have injury concern, and I think Egbuka is definitely a better player than McMillan. This is also an offense that airs the ball out, and Baker does get the ball to his receivers. We've seen that over the last 2 years. So I think Egbuka is definitely a first-round guy in Dynasty, and you may not reap the benefits of this pick in year one. You will see flashes in year one, but I think by years 2 and 3, he could be a really solid wide receiver 1 for fantasy. And this is, again, a guy with a lot of talent who was my wide receiver 2 coming into the actual NFL draft. And I think he's not falling out of the first round. If you're in this range and need a receiver, definitely a guy to bank on here. So then next we move on to a guy who I'm a huge fan of. I think we're going to get a lot of hype around this player. And I'm going to be interested to see if he climbs up boards closer to like the 6 to 8 range as we get closer to the actual drafts. And that's RJ Harvey. So again, I kind of touched on this earlier, but the Broncos didn't take Omar Hampton in the first round like I think a lot of people expected them to. And they took RJ Harvey in the second round at UCF. This guy put up numbers, video game numbers over the last 2 years. He did this as a pure rushing running back and as a receiving back. And I think if he went to a bigger SEC school, we would have seen him go in the first round. I think him going to UCF dropped him to the second round. But this guy he's got the potential to be really good. And we know that Sean Payton has drafted some really good running backs who've turned out to be fantasy studs and studs in real life. So I think we're going to see something similar out of RJ Harvey. You guys got to remember, this Broncos offensive line is top 5 in the league. And if they get a dynamic running back like RJ Harvey behind it, man, like the ceiling is crazy. So maybe, again, our running backs in their first year don't like go crazy typically in their first year, but by the end of the year 2, I think we're going to see some really impressive stuff out of RJ Harvey. If you're at the end of the first round and you need a running back and this guy's there, I think you're getting blessed, because I do think because of the bigger names like Henderson and Judkins are going to go ahead of him, but man, this is a steal at the end of the first round in my opinion. I'm really, really interested to see how his offseason hype continues to build as we get closer to drafts and how it affects his ADP in fantasy. So then we move on to number 12, and this is a really deep running back class. So not just in fantasy, but in real life. So we're going to see a lot of running backs being taken, and the good thing is I think there's guys in the second and third rounds you could hit on if things pan out and they fall to you. But a guy who I think will most likely go at the end of first rounds is Caleb Johnson. That's why I have him here at 12. This was a guy who was going to be a day 2 running back coming to the NFL draft, and he ended up going to Steelers in the third round, who really needed a running back. So again, Najee Harris is gone. Jalen Warren is the RB1 on this team now, and like he's a good player, but he's more like a receiving back you kind of like play around with. He's like a toy for that offense. But they needed that Najee Harris replacement, and I think Caleb Johnson can really do that for him. This really powerful running back who was really good in college. I mean, he went in the third round, but again, this is a guy who could potentially be the RB1 for this team out the gate, and that's exciting taking him in Dynasty because you don't need to wait for him to like really pan out till year 2 or year 3. Maybe you can get that production in year 1, but he's definitely worthy of a first round pick in Dynasty rookie drafts, and I think ultimately we will see him at the end of the first round, like I said. And then we got another tight end, and this is going to be Coulson Loveland here. So yes, Tyler Warren is my tight end 1, but this is Coulson Loveland, who was taken 10, entering a Ben Johnson offense. And we know what Ben Johnson did with Sam Laporta, and this is a team where we should see some positive improvements for Caleb Williams. So I think, again, if you need a tight end, he's not going to last long in the second round if he falls out the first round, and you should probably just grab him here. And again, like I'm higher on Tyler Warren, but he was, again, the number 1 tight end taken in this draft in real life. So he's a quality prospect to take here, and I have no issue taking him here. And then at 14, the last pick of the first round, I have another Chicago Bear, and that's Luther Burden. So Luther Burden was a projected top 10 pick before the start of the college football year for the NFL draft, and he didn't have as much of an jaw-dropping year we thought he'd have. Quarterback play was kind of bad in Mizzou, but he falls to the second round of this year's draft, and the Bears take him. And I think you do take him over guys like Trey Harris and Jaden Higgins here for that upside as what he was projected to be and could still be. My main concern here is that the Bears wide receiver room is super crowded right now. You got DJ Moore, you have Rome Odunze, who you took top 10 last year. You have Coulson Loveland coming in, who isn't a receiver, but he is a receiving tight end. And now you add Luther Burden. So I don't really think we'll see much out of Luther Burden in his first year. But I think DJ Moore is a trade candidate for the Bears next year or the year after if Rome and Luther pan out for him. Because you might as well trade out that contract if you're getting production out of Luther and Rome and go with the cheaper rookie contracts. But I definitely think Luther Burden is someone you take a chance on here at the end of first rounds, and we'll ultimately see going at the end of first rounds. Names to look out for or watch out for as we get closer to the actual drafts at the receiver position are Jaden Higgins and Trey Harris. Both these guys have ended up on offenses that they could really reap the benefits of, and you could reap those benefits for Dynasty. Jaden Higgins paired with CJ Stroud as a big body 6'4" receiver, and then Trey Harris ending up on the Chargers, a team that desperately needs a receiver outside of Ladd McConkey. So those are names I'm going to be monitoring, and those are definitely guys as of right now I have going in the first 4 picks of the second round. But this is how I currently view the first round of rookie Dynasty drafts going for this upcoming season. I want to hear your guys' sleepers. Are there any guys you think are going to really climb the boards into the first round or the ends of the first rounds or starts of the second rounds as we get closer to the start of the NFL season? Are there any guys here you think are going too high or too low? Just drop all your takes in the comments below. And thanks for tuning in. I'll catch y'all later.